I'd start on like a Saturday, and somehow it'd be Wednesday, and I was just missing days in between.
All right, and we're live. Welcome in to episode 8 of the Potato Finance Podcast. I'm here with Mr. LaRoche. Mr. LaRoche, how are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
It's nice to have you on here, dude. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long, as I was saying when you first got here. But let's just talk about you, like kind of introduce you to the people, who you are, kind of your background, like your relevance, how we know each other. You have the floor. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm Tyler LaRoche. Me and Josh, I think we met each other at Subway in 2012, 2011?
2014, because I started right after I graduated high school.
So 2014, all right, so I was there for a couple of years. Yeah, so we met each other at Subway, and I was pretty reckless at that point in time. I was somebody who...
Born to be wild.
I was a partier. I actually met the son of my son's mother there at Subway. So we met there at like 2011. So you came like 2 years after that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I pretty much messed around for most of my life. Now I'm working. I work at Rhode Island College. I go to school. I do the dad thing. So I got my life together, but I'm trying to get my feet wet with the entrepreneur stuff too.
So you mentioned the entrepreneur stuff. Why don't you dive into a little bit like what you're doing with that right now? Kind of like maybe the goals you have, the direction you're going in, like kind of like those basic things.
So I started my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Tyler LaRoche. But right now, if you went on there, there's some videos. It's kind of like a lot of inspiration. It's motivation. Right. I turned my life around. I was somebody who I partied a lot. I became addicted. Alcoholic, all that stuff. But I got my life together and I started getting it together. And through that process, I became a new person. I decided that, I wanted to do something a little bit more than my life, like with my life.
Yeah.
So, I started making the YouTube videos and I realized that, what I was trying to get out of them, I needed to learn a little bit more before I could keep going. So I took a step back.
Right.
Because not only is it inspiration, it's going to be music too. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'm trying to like produce music as well.
Right.
And kind of just have like my overall life, just kind of help inspire people to do more with theirs as well.
Right.
So right now I'm in the learning phase. I took a step back. So there's a few videos on there, but I took a step back and right now I'm kind of learning music production. And, I've always been a musician. It's always like come naturally to me, playing instruments. And, a lot of people actually have always been like, oh, you need to do something. And I'm like, yeah. And never did anything.
I've always thought that, like, literally even like years ago when we were sitting around the fire and like you were playing the guitar, I'm like, how is this potato like this good? Like he can't even make a BMT, but the kid can play any song.
I could
on
make
the guitar.
the best BMT. All right, I'm gonna look in the camera to say this. I was the best sandwich maker at Subway. If you work at Subway and you want to run some sandwich making, hit me up. I'll do it. I'll make the fastest sandwich and the best.
You just said you were too busy to do anything. And
I'll make time for that.
That's funny. So what do you kind of do with music production? Like, what do you learn in regards to that?
So I'm kind of learning. So right now I've always been kind of like a singer-songwriter. So I play acoustic guitar. I could play drums, piano, all that stuff. It always came easy to me. So that was one of the things that made me think like, maybe this is something I should try.
Right.
And now I just wanted to be able to stand out in this world of just saturated, people like always on YouTube posting a bunch of stuff. So I wanted to find a way to stand out. And the only way I can do that is to learn how to produce my music to the best, at its best quality.
Right.
So I've been learning how to record music. I have the laptop. I have my recording software. I have all the fun stuff that you need to be able to produce. I'm learning how to do it, how to make everything sound right. I'm trying to learn how to like incorporate different instruments,
right?
Like some make it a little bit poppier music too. But I'm going to try to experiment with everything and try to find my style with that. I've always been the acoustic player, but I'm incorporating a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of, different tools. So I'm going to see where, what kind of style I am, like what I'm able to do with this.
Right. Now, how many hours a week do you spend on that? Like whether it's learning, researching, or just like editing the music itself? So I have been taking actually like a class every month for the last 3 months. So they're 30-day long classes and 30 to 40-day long classes. So every time one ends, I ended up starting a new one. So I spend probably about 20 hours a week at least, like recording, editing, doing, classes, trying to learn stuff. Like There's a lot more that goes into recording music than I thought there was. So you not only just record, you have to apply equalizer, which is like
moving frequencies around. You have to apply compression. You have to apply like noise gates so certain like background noise doesn't get in. So it's a lot of intricate, intense stuff.
A lot
that
of little
happens.
things.
A lot of little things. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, because some of these, and people will never understand this. Like, people watching this, they're never ever going to understand how much work goes into that. And I can tell you firsthand, like, some of these videos I make, they take forever. And I'm not even talking about like just the filming and the editing. I'm talking about just the planning, like just getting the idea. Like, sometimes it takes me a day of thinking just to get an idea. And obviously once I get the idea, I kind of hit the ground running and run with it. But like, just getting the idea, like, there's times like I sit down and I'm like, I have nothing going. I'm like, I have no idea how I'm ever going to get a video out for Monday. Like, I've literally no clue. Like,
and that's the entrepreneur lifestyle. Like, it's
a
true.
constant panic.
I want to say first off, like, thank you for having me on this.
Of course,
because I was super excited when you asked me. And second of all, like, talking about your YouTube thing, I was literally inspired by your YouTube journey. Like, probably a few days, like, it was super close to when you asked me. Probably a few days before you asked me to be on here. I remember, because I'm at that threshold where I'm finishing like the learning stage, and I'm going to start like posting more. So I'm going back into YouTube, and I'm at the threshold of a new step.
Right.
So I started feeling like nervous again, like that doubt and all that stuff. And I remember when you hit me up, like letting me know you were going to be starting at YouTube, and you were telling me it was going to be about, finances and all that. And we were talking about the same type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was saying the same thing. I had the same idea around the same time as you. And I remember like a few days before you asked me, I was looking at your YouTube and I saw like how consistent you've been since you told me that. And it made me just think like, look how consistent he's been being, like, and it motivated me to just get right back into it. And it is a lot of work. It's a very lonely life. It's a lot of stuff you have to like work on by yourself.
Yeah, that's the truth.
It gets hard because you have to you don't feel great every single day.
Right.
You have to like, you feel motivated one day, and then another day you're doubting yourself, because this is like over the course of, years. So like, you might feel good one week, and then a few weeks go by, and next thing you know, you're like, why am I doing this?
Right.
And you have to remind yourself why you're still doing this.
I was saying on the last podcast that I just recorded, which I haven't released yet, I was talking about how I was listening to one of Joe Rogan's podcasts, and he was saying, he's like, it's not about how much work you put in on the days you're feeling motivated, because everyone's going to have that day they wake up and they're like, I want to go running, I want to go to the gym. It's about those days where it's like, you don't want to do anything. Like, it's about those days where you wake up and you're like, snooze, like off, like you just don't get out of bed. But you still force yourself to do it and force yourself to be productive. That's really what separates, I feel like, I guess, average from great, in my personal opinion.
Absolutely. I'm very familiar with Joe Rogan and his speech saying that, it's true. Like, I think he refers to the gym. He's like if I didn't work out the days I didn't want to work out, I'd be fat.
Yeah.
He said, he pretty much says like, I'm pretty much the laziest disciplined person there is.
Literally, like, I can 100% see that. He's actually smarter than people give him credit for.
He is super intellectual. I've seen him have people like Jordan Peterson on there, or like people who just are very intellectual.
And he holds the conversation.
Exactly.
That's the thing. It's one thing to have like someone on there and it's like that, he just carries you through. But it's like another thing to actually have like an intellectual conversation. Like
Contribute.
That Matthew Walker podcast that I was talking about with you before we started recording, like the way he was able to carry himself, or the one he just had someone on there. It might have been like Andrew Hubert or something like that. He just had someone on there, talked a lot about like the body and like its functions. The way he was able to hold himself about all like the supplements he talked about, all like everything to do with the mind, it was actually incredible. Like, I was actually super surprised, and I always thought he was an idiot. Like, I always thought he was like I really did. Like, I thought he was just someone who, he got lucky with Fear Factor, he got a big name, and then he's just kind of out there to get drunk at UFC fights and just, yell and scream at Conor McGregor. But he's not. He actually knows what he's talking about, which is actually really shocking.
Yeah, it's people like that. Like, when you see Joe Rogan just at like face value, maybe like I can see how people think that, but like people like that where they're disciplined and they work hard, like, look at how much he's done with his entire life, starting with Fear Factor, and he starts that podcast, and he does so much stuff. And I've found that a lot of people who keep pushing like that do know a lot more than you may think.
Yeah,
you have to stay like disciplined, and that it takes a lot of work. And a lot of people who stay disciplined start to work on other things too,
right?
Because they're very goal oriented.
Yeah, and then they kind of like, I feel like one thing leads to another. Like, for example, like I started filming and editing YouTube videos, and that led to this podcast. Like, and obviously that's a very severe step down from what he's doing. But I guess along the same lines, maybe this podcast would lead to something else, maybe like a blog down the road, or maybe like a website, or there's other things that it can lead to. But I feel like a lot of people, they really look where people are at step 10. And they don't think, all right, I'm at step 1. Like, there's no way I'll ever get there. It's like, well, he didn't just start at step 10.
Yeah.
Like, it took him time to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. But people don't want to, I guess, go along for the ride. And if that's the case, then don't do it, to be honest. Like, one thing that I've been making a lot of TikToks about this lately, but I've been running a lot. And I feel like running really presents, like, a mental challenge. Because when you're out running on the road, like, who's going to see you? Like, maybe some guy in a pickup truck stopping by, maybe little Susie like walking her dog or something.
Susie.
But the majority of people, they're not going to see you. And if like you stop running, like you're just like, I don't feel like doing this anymore, I'm going to walk back to my house. Most people aren't going to care. Like, they're not going to think twice about it. But it's to have that like discipline, to have that motivation to just, I guess, keep going, to push yourself. And the fact that no one is watching you, no one cares, but you care and it matters to you. Mm-hmm. And to really push yourself and keep going, that's really important. But anyway, what I was trying to say is I've really thought about running a marathon. I've thought about it. And I'm like, that's a lot of work. And it's like, I looked up like a training program. It's like 16 weeks of training. So I'm like, all right, 4 months. I don't think if I were to do it, I don't think I'd start training now. Because July, that puts us in November. So I don't really want to do it in the cold, because I feel like that running in the cold is just a recipe for disaster. So I was
if I'm doing all that, might as well do it in the hot weather.
Right. So I was thinking like maybe like March or April and then August. That would probably be like the time of like a next year. But then I was thinking, I'm like, do I really want to do that? Like I enjoy running now, and I know like running that marathon and like getting to that finish line, I would feel so accomplished. Like I would feel fantastic. But the thing is, I don't think I would enjoy the journey of being on that type of schedule. I don't think I'd enjoy the journey of, running 10 miles like this day, like making sure I don't do anything stupid on this day because I got to get up tomorrow morning and run, 8 miles. I don't think I'd enjoy that. But like with this YouTube stuff and this podcast, like the podcast especially, I genuinely enjoy sitting down and having a conversation with someone maybe I haven't seen in a while, or an old friend, or maybe someone I just see all the time, and just talking about stocks, like business, finance, or like we're going to talk about today, like a lot of happiness and self-development stuff.
Yeah.
But that stuff I enjoy, and I'm like, I don't know if I would genuinely enjoy running this marathon. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. Like, if you're not going to genuinely enjoy the process and understand that it's a process and it's going to take a lot of time, then don't do it. It's probably not the right pathway for you, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's hard. And how you started that with like the people comparing themselves to chapter 10 when they're on chapter 1.
Right.
It's discouraging. And it's hard like in this social media world when you're trying to do your own thing and you see everybody's highlight reel and you're just starting out. Like
right.
You're looking at people when they've spent their whole lives to get to that point, and you're comparing your day 1 to their chapter 10.
Right.
It's tough, but it's worth it. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself, that going back to the entrepreneur thing being a lonely journey, I've been doing this for probably about a year now. So I started, I'm coming up on my 3rd year sober, and, year 1 was really like building, a new life, new habits.
Right.
Year 2 was kind of the same thing, but almost starting to like try to figure out who I am and like what I'm going to do with my life. And, this last year has literally been, this is what I want to do. I want to start, in trying to inspire people, go for my dreams, become a music producer,
right.
a singer-songwriter. And I've had to remind myself so often through this last year, that it's worth it, that there's a bigger reason why I'm doing this, because there's not any payoff. I haven't had any payoff for this whole first year. I started with the YouTube, then I had to take a break, and I've been doing 6 months now of music production.
Right.
So I'm not getting any like views or anything because I'm not posting anything, and I'm just learning. And it's so hard because I'm a dad and I work full time. I still go to school on top of that. So
right.
It's like finding that little bit of extra time I have where I could be relaxing. It's like I'm working on my dream in the long term, and I have to keep reminding myself that there's a purpose for this. I want this more than how I'm feeling today.
Right. Because you could look at guys like Elon Musk when he founded Tesla. Like, do you think he just like woke up one day and he's like, today I'm going to build a car? Like,
That guy's
maybe he did. Like,
that
with
guy's
him,
a savage.
but, like, I've read, he's like screwed up in the head, dude. Like, there's
Have
no.
you seen him
way to
on Joe
describe it.
Rogan's interviews? Like
I
on
watched.
podcasts?
I watched a good part of the first one. I don't think I watched the entire thing, but I did watch a couple hours of it.
He seems like somebody who's so, like when somebody's just so smart, their social skills are not like there. It just seems like so much is going on up there.
I feel stupid just looking at him.
It's
I feel like an
crazy
idiot.
how much he like.
like.
It's crazy like hearing him think. Like when he starts spewing off what he's saying and what he's thinking about like what's going to be coming for the future and what he's going to be inventing, I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Just like his persona, like the way he presents himself, like the way he speaks very slowly. He really thinks so carefully about what he's saying. And maybe that's because all the cameras are on him. Like, we'll obviously probably never know what he's like just in a situation like this where it's just the two of us talking.
Yeah.
But just the way he presents himself, you can just tell, like, all right, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, but let's kind of get into kind of your story a little bit. Let's kind of talk about your battle with addiction. I don't know how much you want to open up about that, but anything you're willing to put on camera. I'd love to hear about kind of your battle with it, how you got through it, like that whole story.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm an open book now when it comes to that. I don't know if you saw that video I posted, like where it was all that inspiration, that thing I edited.
I did.
Yeah, that was a lot of work.
The thing about your channel and what I really like about your channel is you kind of, and I know you haven't posted in a while, but you kind of started from like high quality from like the jump. Like if you go back on my channel, like, and you watch like the first video, like the very first video I posted, it's like the quality is awful. Like it's like potato camera, like there's no autofocus. Like as like we can see ourselves right now in that little like flip screen, there was no flip screen. So I think I filmed that like 3 times. The first time, like it was like looking at the ground.
I think that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but yours were just like really high quality. Like you had good, like obviously it can always be better, but for a first video, like I thought it was fantastic.
Thanks.
You had great angles. The color grading looked really good. Like I was actually really impressed. I'm like, this makes my first video look awful.
Like your consistency, the consistency is where it's at. I'm a super perfectionist, and I think perfectionism, is that a thing? Perfectionism? That's the word, right?
Perfectionist. I
think being a perfectionist is almost like a killer for people who want to like for long-term goals, because like something like music production or something like, posting YouTube videos,
right.
It takes learning and messing up, but like when you're a perfectionist, it kills you. It eats at you. So like I've had to find a way to, that's one thing I can suggest. If you're a perfectionist and you're going to try doing an entrepreneur type thing when it comes to YouTube or whatever it is, you have to find a way to stay, be outside of yourself. Like even if you feel like things need to be perfect, find a way to remind yourself like this is just me, like it's going to be okay no matter what. This is a learning process because, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect.
Especially when you first start. It's
exactly.
Just like, your first video is not going to be good. It's probably going to get like 10 views if you're lucky. Like some of my videos still get like 10 views.
And it's and it's in and that's just how it is. And it's just you just got to keep it up.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the addiction thing.
So
why don't we touch on that a little bit?
So I grew up. I went to the same high school as you. I think.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated. It was 08.
08. So yeah, I wasn't even in high school yet.
Yeah. So I was supposed to graduate 08. I ended up staying and doing 09, and then I got a GED. So I never even. That. Yeah. So I got my GED, and then I've always been somebody who, from 15 years old, I was around 14 or 15 years old when I started, smoking, drinking, and that was something that really easily helped me fit in. It was something that really like killed anxiety and helped me like be able to talk to people. I still struggle with anxiety to this day, but it was something that just masked it. And that kind of became something that I held on to, my entire life.
Right.
It wasn't a problem until, it was. So I partied. By the time I was 18, by the time I was 20, I'll say I probably moved about 11 times. So like I've never, my family's, we're not really that close to begin with, but we kind of like broken apart over the years. And
right.
I ended up moving so many times. I ended up staying at a lot of friends' houses, and that became a thing. I just always partied and always just lived on like couch to couch to couch.
Right.
Until like, unless I was in a relationship, until I find a girlfriend, and then I'd be with them for a while. Then I'd be out of that and then go into, so then at the age of 21, about 2013, I ended up having, a son, my son Carson, he's 7 years old now. He'll be 8 in October. And
he's old.
He's old. 2. He's going into second grade.
I'm getting old, man.
Me too. Me too.
No, you are old.
Wow,
I'm
30.
Just kidding. Keep going. I didn't
You're like,
keep
never
going,
mind.
please.
You are old. But so he's going to be 8 in October. But at that point in time, I knew there was something that had to change. But I just didn't want to change yet.
Right.
So the big thing that I kept saying to his mom when we were together was like, I just need to like live it up, just a little bit longer before I'm ready to give it up, because I knew somewhere in me that I wanted to stop.
And that's a dangerous thing to, I guess, not pursue, I want to say, but have that mindset, because I feel like it's like there's always going to be a plus one. Like there's always a tomorrow.
It's always your last hurrah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always, and I remember saying that all the time. This is my last time. This is my last time. And
I remember you saying that too.
Yeah, I would say that so many times, and I wouldn't know why. And it started by the time Carson was, probably 1 year old. That first year of his life was the point where I transitioned into full alcoholism, because I remember I was working at the Subway that we met, and I started feeling like stuff happening to like my chest. Like I thought I was having like heart problems, and I had to leave. And I remember leaving one day. I told Vinny, that was our old boss, Vinny. I remember telling him I had to go, and I left, and there was a liquor store right upstairs of that plaza, and I went and I got a pint of whiskey, and I just chugged it, and all of that pain went away. And that was the moment I started realizing that maybe it wasn't problems with me, it was alcoholism. I was withdrawing.
Right.
So that's when things started to snowball. Once you cross that line into withdrawing from alcohol, there's no turning back. There's no just having a couple beers and it being done. So that from that moment on, it was changed. I was a changed person. It was really, really hard for me to stop. And I would try to drink a little bit, and the next thing I'd be blackout and I'd wake up, and I'd be like, what happened again? So that was a problem for a while. Until me and Carson's mother, we separated, and then I was living at my friend Kyle's house, which is where we ended up hanging out. We worked together for a little bit, and we didn't really hang out until I lived at Kyle's.
I think so, because I think we started going to the same gym.
Yeah,
and then
Ocean State.
Kyle was also going there, so that's kind of when all three of us started hanging out a little bit.
Yeah, and that's when we played basketball, and I took my shirt off and had to leave it in the woods.
Just keep talking.
So, anyways. That's a different story. But so I lived at Kyle's house, and that was my first time being sober for 6 months. I stayed at his house. His family welcomed me in.
I remember that because I remember we'd go out. Like, I think we went bowling once. I think we went out to eat. And I don't think I was 21 at the time, so I couldn't order anything. Mm-hmm. But you didn't get anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is awesome. He's really doing this.
Yeah, that was mainly because when Carson's mother and I separated, I really I felt somewhere in me that I was going to try to get her back.
Right.
Which was an unhealthy way of going sober, because, it worked for 6 months. But, if you're doing it for reasons that aren't, for you, if you're doing it for anything outside of yourself, it's not going to last.
Yeah, it's just a Band-Aid at the end of the day.
Right, exactly. So, then at some point, summer came around after that 6 months, and I relapsed with friends. I hid it from Kyle for a little bit, and then...
I remember Kyle telling me this.
Yeah, he was disappointed. We were still cool though, and then I moved out of his house, moved in with my mom. And my family is not always the best either if you're trying to be sober, because there's a lot of drugs and stuff that come in and out of that house. So it's not always the best place. And I kind of just went on a rampage, and I ended up going to rehab my first time in September. I think it was 2016.
Wasn't it kind of spontaneous too?
It was spontaneous. I was wasted at the end of the night, and my mom came out, and I was like, I'm going to go to rehab, because, we were sitting at the table talking at like 3 a.m. So we called. The first thing, I just Googled rehab, and first thing that popped up, I called it. They set it up, and I literally had a a flight for the next day.
Wasn't it? It was in Arizona, right?
Arizona. I remember Arizona, yeah.
I think I might have been talking to you, might have been the day before, 2 days before. And you were like, yeah, we should hang out sometime, catch up. I'm like, yeah, definitely. I think I texted you that day to set something up, and you were like, yeah, I'm getting on a plane to go to Arizona. I'm going to rehab. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? You literally just said let's hang out soon, and now you're leaving.
Yeah. See, what happens, which I found out the hard way through trial and error, is every time you quit and you're an alcoholic or an addict, when you relapse, it's way worse. It just happens. Things happen way harder, way faster.
Right.
And so I spiraled out of control really quickly. So I probably relapsed, and I was off to rehab probably within a month or two. And then I got out of that. That was about 6 months of sobriety, and that was the best. That was the best experience one of the best experiences of my life, being in Arizona. Rehab, it changed my life. I saw a whole new perspective on life, on how you can handle problems, handle your mindset, and change your habits. And I came back with a whole new attitude. I still felt upset somewhere in me about not having a relationship or anything like that. But that ended up biting me in the ass eventually. And I lasted 6 months sober, relapsed again. That relapse, my first relapse out of Arizona. When I got out of Arizona, after the 6 months, I literally thought I was never going to drink again. And then I relapsed, and that's when I realized that it was a scarier disease than I thought it was. It's very, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Dangerous?
Yeah, it's very like sneaky. What's a good word for sneaky?
Like sly?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's a very insidious disease, I guess. And so, in that first week that I relapsed, I got my second DUI. So like immediately from thinking that I was like all good, like I got right back into college in that 6 months. I got my car back, my license back from my first DUI, and I ended up doing okay. I was doing good in school. I was having Carson every weekend. I was doing great. I was working out. And then my first time, it was St. Patrick's Day, I relapsed and that first week that I relapsed, I got a second DUI. So that I ended up going off really hard for a week. My car crashed. My buddy was driving it one time, one night, and he crashed it. We parked it at my house. We had to get it towed to my house, and then I left for rehab again.
Where was this one?
This one was in Rhode Island. So this one was, I think it was called AdCare. I had a great time there too. Every rehab experience was actually a good time. So then I came out of that rehab, and I kind of did that too because I wanted to push off court. Because after that second DUI, like you potentially go to prison for the second DUI.
Right.
So after that, I ended up going to rehab. That pushed my court date back. When I got out, I was doing okay again. When I had my court date, I ended up having to do a day and a night at the ACI. From there, I got my I had a bracelet on my ankle to be in home confinement for 20 days. I had to do community service, pay like over $1,500 in fines. They don't make it easy.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think the important thing to, I guess, really make note of here, it sounds like a lot of little things. Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously no one wants to spend a night at the ACI, but you could have spent a year at the ACI.
Right.
I got to be at home for 20 days. You could have been at home for
so
3 months,
like
everyone
a
was
lot
last
worse.
year.
So everything that happened, like even though I had 2 DUIs, there are situations that could have been way worse than that. Like
Right.
when I was cleaning up my act, like I was really like, I haven't lost that much.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't hurt anybody. All I had to do, go through all the punishments, get my license back. Like I didn't lose that much. It's not like I had a bunch of debt or anything like that.
Right.
So my life I didn't have much, but I also didn't lose a lot.
Right.
So I was at a good starting point. So when I came back from that DUI, I did all that time, the home confinement, all that. I stayed sober for about 2 months. So my sobriety started getting shorter and shorter after the first relapse. So it was like 6 months, 2 months, relapsed. That got really bad because that relapse, I started doing harder drugs, like cocaine, stuff like that. And then from there, I went into a rehab again from Florida. I actually met the girlfriend I have now during that period of time where I relapsed. She didn't know that I had a problem until she realized that I was cold sweating from like not drinking.
Oh, shoot.
She just thought I was really sick all the time.
Oh, man.
She was always just like, "Why are you always sick?" And I'm like, I don't know. I get sick.
Oh, man.
I get sick. But then I ended up telling her. I ended up going back to rehab the third time. I actually didn't relapse and then go to rehab. I relapsed after the home confinement and stuff. Met Casey during that. She realized I was a pretty bad drinker. Convinced me to go sober. I tried going sober myself again. Did 2 months. Didn't work. I relapsed. That got really bad. And during this time too, these last few times where I quit and then relapse, I moved another like 2 times. So I've moved a lot.
Right.
And then when I went to rehab the third time, that was in Florida. That was another cool experience. I came back. That lasted 2 months. July 4th came, relapsed, went to rehab again at the original spot that I had the first time, which was Arizona. And in that rehab, I thought to myself, I was thinking while I was there, something just clicked, and I knew that I didn't want to do this anymore. Because it's just, it sounds like, as I explain it, it's just relapse, rehab.
Right.
But during that period of time, there's so much that happens, so much stuff between me and Carson's mom, so many things that are happening like behind the scenes that you don't know about. And there's so much that just goes wrong and so many people that you hurt throughout this process, including yourself, obviously.
Right.
So, during that period of time, something clicked and I just knew like I didn't want to live this life. I watched myself go through all those those quitting experiences. Like I quit, relapse. And during that period of time, 2 years went by. My son grew 2 years older. And I remember just like being in rehab and just feeling terrible about like how fast time was going by, you know? And I just wanted to live that life with my son and just really, just enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a better person. I knew I was a better person. And I just wanted to be able to prove that to myself, because especially at the end there, that last time that I relapsed was so hard with like drugs and stuff. I was losing days. Like there was days that would like, I'd start on like a Saturday and somehow it'd be Wednesday and I was just missing days in between.
Wow.
And it was just so bad. And a lot of my close friends actually don't even know how bad it actually got. Like even people that like I've been friends with my entire life, they don't know the worst of it. Like the only people who knew were Casey. She saw it. My family and
all of YouTube.
Yeah, all of YouTube now. All you guys are now a part of it. So, I moved out. I got out of that last rehab, and my auntie Vicky, who me and her have never been close. I always thought that, honestly, like I always thought she was just extremely like strict person, but I realized she's a sweetheart. She invited me in to live with her, and she was always trying to help me, trying to get my life on track, and I always disappointed her. But this time I said to myself, I'm just going to follow her lead and listen to what she says. She let me move into this garage in her backyard, this big garage that was like a workshop. It was my own space. It was the first time in my life that I was able to have my own room. I've never had a room that was just mine.
Right.
And I remember getting in there, looking around. I was like, this is where I'm going to change my life. And that's actually where you see a lot of YouTube videos on my YouTube channel take place, is in that garage, like in that backyard right there. Oh. So that's where I ended up staying. I still sober and now I'm going on 3 years. And in that time I got a new job. I work in an office now, and I've been doing well in school. I went from having my son on the weekends to having him 1 week on and 1 week off.
That's
and no
awesome.
Child support payments. So, and we're still doing that today. Me and my son have a great relationship. Me and my son's mother, Michaela, we have a great relationship, and it's just been a crazy ride.
That's actually awesome. Like knowing you, I guess 5+ years ago now. I'm not sure exactly the last time we were hanging out and working together, but that's really awesome to hear. And like, hopefully someone watching this, I don't want to say hopefully someone struggling, but hopefully, I guess that story inspires them to, I guess, get the help they need and turn their life around. Now, does your current girlfriend drink at all?
No, well, she doesn't have a problem. She's somebody that's been able to have a couple of drinks, but she literally is she's younger than me. So
right.
she's 25, and she literally she's like an old woman. She goes to bed early just like I do, and she doesn't drink. Sometimes she'll have a couple of drinks at a family party, but there's literally months on end that go by where she doesn't even touch alcohol. It's not something that's in the house or. And
I asked because that kind of transitions to the next thing I wanted to ask you. How important do you think in a situation, not only you were in, but even if it's someone a casual drinker, maybe they're just a weekend type of guy, maybe a beer or two after work, how important do you, I guess, really think it is that you surround yourself with the right people? Because it's very easy to say, at least in my opinion, all right, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm just going to drink on the weekends. But if you're hanging out with coworkers or friends a few nights a week, a few days a week, and they're all drinking, I personally feel like it's a recipe for disaster, and it's just going to be really hard to, I guess, hold up for an extended period of time. And I feel like maybe you'll be able to do it for a short period of time, but in certain situations, I feel like if you're just constantly around that, I feel like you almost, we'll take alcohol, for example, you're going to want to drink, even though if you go in with the mindset, I don't want to drink, after so much time goes by, you're going to be I do want to drink, but you don't. It's just you're being tricked. So what do you kind of think about that?
I think I've heard actually something that stuck with me, and you're actually an average of the three main people you hang out with. So birds of the feather flock together. I'm just throwing things out there, but that it's true that when you hang out with people, you become them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily them, but you take on their qualities. That's how you end up talking. That's the style of person you become.
Right.
So if you're hanging out with people and who, even if you're just hanging out just to do something, like if you don't necessarily want to be like them and you start to hang out with them all the time, whether it's you don't have any other friends or you don't have anything else that you can spend your time doing, whether you like it or not, you're going to start to become more like those people.
Right.
So if you're hanging out with people and they're drinking all the time, you're going to end up drinking all the time. And I feel like it's tough just to be able to be somebody who has a few beers. And I know there are people out there who do it. Like there are some people who just have a few beers, but like most of the time, there are people who've just kind of always been like that. They don't have really reckless friends, or they have like a good job and a good family. But like, I know plenty of people who it was always moderation with them, but like, and they have their lives together. They have good jobs and stuff now, but like, it's like they have everything good going, like in that aspect where it doesn't look like their life's a mess, but like they party so much.
Yeah.
And it's like where you can see it declining in their health as they age.
They're
like,
just functioning alcoholics.
and it's
like,
all they do now. And
Yeah.
like, and I remember like, and it's a lot of people that I know too that I don't really hang out with anymore. Like a lot of people, like I don't hang out with a lot of the old friends that I had, just because it's not that, you know, we don't like each other or anything. It's just I'm a new person. I have different values.
Right.
So it's just I don't, you know, it's not a bad thing to say that they just don't like serve a full purpose in your life anymore. And that's okay.
And I think that's also part of the toughest part, because you're like, I don't want to drink, but I also know I can't be around them.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to fall back into it. And I think that honestly is the hardest part. Like just being able to like take yourself out of that environment and drop yourself into a completely different one where you're just like, all right, I don't want to do this. I'm going to miss you guys so much. We get so many like great memories, but I need to take that leap and never talk to you again.
Right.
It's kind of harsh, but
it's
like,
yeah, it's having something else to do with your time, you know, like rewiring. I had to rewire everything about my life. I had to incorporate completely new habits. I had to figure out a whole new way of thinking. And I was so desperate for it that I completely submerged myself in self-help and,
Right.
and reading books and listening to, you know, motivational things. Like I changed like my morning routine, and I had to do so many things. I completely plunged into the life of just positive and productivity, that like, which is part of the reason why I wanted to start a YouTube, because I realized that what I did wasn't normal.
right.
It's because I didn't just quit drinking. I started improving all the aspects of my life. I got
Right.
into better shape. Like I was acing classes. You know, I've mended relationships with the mother of my child, and you know,
Which is a big step.
And
Awesome.
I'm fully involved in my son's life. You know,
Right.
soccer games, school things, like all that stuff. So I wanted to be able to inspire people to be able to, you know, change their lives and go for things that, you know, maybe I'm doing, and inspire people to do the same stuff.
I think alcohol is one of the most screwed up things in society.
It honestly is. It's crazy how it's legal, and it's probably one of the worst
Like
drugs.
I completely agree. Like people say it's not addicting, it's addicting.
And I mean, absolutely
I still
addicting.
drink, but I'm thinking more and more as like time goes on. I'm like, is this the best use of my time? Like I've been drinking significantly less than I have when I was in my early 20s. Like it's almost just like blows my mind how people don't see it. Like when you're drinking alcohol, you're literally poisoning your body. So it's crazy to me that so many people in society, they're really like, let's go out to a bar, let's go get drinking, blow all that money, and then regret it the next day. And they keep doing it. And the more I think about like just I guess the fundamentals behind it like that, I'm just like, why? Like what's the purpose? Like you're telling me there's nothing better I can be doing with my time than going out, spending money, putting myself in a potential dangerous situation, and waking up and regretting it the next day. Like there's nothing better I can be doing with my time.
Right. It's just empty calories. You
That's
make
the thing,
stupid
it's also
decisions,
unhealthy, like-
and like you get wasted with people. There are plenty of times that I got wasted with people for weeks, and then I realized, like you realize as you sober up, you still don't even know them.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't even know who that person is. You
Right.
can't hang out with them sober because you guys don't really know the real you.
Yeah, and if you do, it's like awkward.
Yeah, it's super awkward, and that's something like you got to kind of figure out. Like I'm realizing now, like how much wasted time, wasted money I had. Like I have to say no to a lot of stuff now, and I don't even drink.
Yeah.
Like I can't even make time to do things because I have so much other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're spending all that time going out drinking, it's like, what are you sacrificing?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. It blows my mind like that some people are like really against some of these other drugs. Like I know there's like the whole like predicament about weed being federally legalized, which I really think it's going to be federally legalized over the next couple of years. But it's hard for me to like, I guess, understand like something like that is, I guess, worse or not equivalent to alcohol?
I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as alcohol.
How do you kind of feel about moderation, like for both you and for the average person? Because I personally feel like moderation's not a thing. Like I think super moderation's a thing. I don't think there's such a thing as moderation, because say you take someone, for example, and I talked about this on the podcast with Fisky and Richie that I released a couple weeks ago. You take someone that they want to stop drinking. They're like, I'm not going to drink anymore. They might go a month without drinking, and then they're like, all right, you know what? I've been doing really great for a month. I think I can handle it now. I'm going to go out and have a beer with my friends on Friday nights. So you start off with having one beer. Another month goes by. Then you're like, all right, you know what? I've been doing well, 2 beers. Then another month goes by. You know what? Let's do Friday and Saturday. And before you know it, you're back to the same exact point. And I feel like it's like that with everything. Like, and not just, I guess, alcohol or I guess whatever substances and supplements you might be using. But I'm talking about dieting. I'm talking about working out, running. I feel like if you're not consistent and you just start missing one day, I guess the percentage of you taking a chance of relapsing and going right back to where you were, it jumps through the roof.
Yeah, that's a tough one to try to figure out, because moderation, there's a lot of factors I think play into that. Like, you know, for example, going on the person who's trying to quit alcohol, and then like they're like, oh, they have one weekend where they have 2 beers, and then 4 beers, and then they're wasted again. That could be, habits, bad habits, people they hang out with. Like if they're people who are college kids who are always partying,
right,
and their habits are to get wasted every single night. If you're trying to go back into moderation and your life is surrounded by people who get wasted all the time, I don't think there's any room for moderation in that.
Right.
And but I was thinking that too, because I was thinking like I know that like drinking isn't something that I can moderate, but I was wondering, because throughout this whole sobriety process, I've learned who I was, what I'm interested in, and I found value in myself. I actually like myself now, and I was curious as to like if I had this mindset before I was an alcoholic, if there would be some way to be able to just drink without it being a problem. Obviously, that's not something that like I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, like seriously, because it's not really. But that's popped in my head before. I was like, I wonder if people can do that. I'm not the best one to ask about that, because like I'm terrible with moderation. I'm like seriously like I have an addictive personality with everything. I do everything 100%, like whether it's good or bad. Right. I go 100% in on everything.
I think there's such things as like super moderation, as I referred to it before. Like I think you can be someone like, I guess we'll keep using alcohol as an example here. I think you can be someone that sets very hard, strict deadlines, or not deadlines, but I guess instances for themselves. Like I think you can be someone that's like, all right, I'm only going to drink on New Year's, my birthday, 4th of July, like Christmas, like holidays. I think that is definitely something people can, I guess, really apply to their life. But I feel like going back to like the regular moderation that we were just talking about, I feel like the majority of the population can't handle that.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a very easy thing for anybody to do, like, especially in a time like this where everything is just, trying to sell you something. Like even with diets, like everything's like, nobody knows how to have a good relationship with food or anything. So people like go on these diets where they stop carbs and they just stop eating anything. They only eat lettuce. Right. And then they go to eat again, and because their body needs carbs, they end up eating so much where they gain all their weight back. And it's really hard to find moderation. And there's probably some people who really can find moderation with some things. Like I think it just really comes down to a good, things just playing out well in somebody's life, where they're able to find moderation with certain things, because it's just like that.
Yeah, I definitely like to look into a little more to see if there's been any like studies on that, because I'm the same way. Like I'll be like I'll do something for like a week and it's like great, and then I'll stop doing it and that's it. Yeah. Like, which is why I try to stay like so consistent with like this podcast and this YouTube, because I know like if I like miss one upload, if I don't upload a podcast like every single week, and granted there's probably going to be a week eventually where I can't get it out for technical difficulties, like some realistic reason, maybe I just unplug and go away. Like that, yeah. But if I'm just like, you know what, forget it, I don't feel like doing it this week, I've had a bad week, that's usually the start. And then it might be, I'll be uploading a video every other week, and then maybe it's once a month, and before you know it, it's just like, forget it, I'm done.
Yeah, and that's routine too. Trying to keep a routine going, because like once you break it, it's like that comfort zone shrinks. I've realized that the more you push and grow your comfort zone, the easier it is to keep it that way. But once you start to pull back from things that you're used to doing, your comfort zone shrinks with it. And then you feel a little bit less comfortable doing the things that you once were doing.
Right.
Like I actually saw some kid on YouTube post a video about that. He would spent like he did so much stuff. He learned how to talk to all these people and go out and just experience stuff with strangers through his college experience. And then I think a Halo video game came out, and he spent weeks just sitting in his room eating Doritos playing Halo. And then once that time was up where he wanted to go back out and do stuff, he felt so uncomfortable to do any of that anymore.
That's great. I kind of felt the same way like last year during COVID, where it was like 3 months of like essentially like don't leave your house, like you can't go anywhere. And then it's like society started to open back up a little bit again, and I was able to really start going out with some of my friends, like going out to eat, and I felt like almost like anxious, and I felt like really awkward, and it was like weird. And I'm like, I don't understand why I feel like this. Like because before COVID, I never had an issue with that. It's like I would talk to anyone. Like I could be at a restaurant, I would talk to the waiter, I would talk to the hostess. Like I had no shame in any of that. And then all of a sudden it was just like I felt really anxious. I couldn't talk to people. I felt like I shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
All these like weird thoughts going through my head, and I'm just like, what is wrong with me?
Definitely. I could see that though. Yeah. That's the shrinking comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually flourished I did pretty well during COVID because that was like in my third year of sobriety. So once that happened, like I was already used to not going out. So like I ended up getting a promotion during that time, and I got into better shape, and I was like, this year's been great. I was a lucky one.
Yeah. Other than the fact from me, I guess, being really anxious in that situation to start, I feel like 2020 wasn't the worst year for me either. Like I feel like it was all right, but I can definitely see how it was bad for a lot of people. But now, so that was going on your third year of sobriety, you just said. So how do you think you would have responded if, say, you were in like your first 6 months of your first year?
Well, that was my second. I'm going on my third right now.
Okay.
I don't know.
Still, same question.
Yeah. How would that feel if it was my first year?
Yeah.
It probably actually wouldn't have been that bad.
Really?
Yeah, because, when I first started, because if it was the same scenario, I got the spot that my aunt gave me, I knew in that moment in time that I wanted something different for my life.
Right.
Sometimes with things like that, when you want change, I don't know if you ever listen to Tony Robbins.
I actually love Tony Robbins. Like I've had some other people inspire all this stuff I'm doing. Like Nick's been a really big influence. Like there's been a lot of people that have really inspired it. But Tony Robbins was like the first person. Like I read his book. What's it called? 7 Steps to Mastering the Game. That book really put into perspective anyone can be stupid rich. Anyone. That really started to put everything into perspective for me. And Tony, you're probably not watching this. You'll probably never hear from me again. I still don't know how you're living through that brain tumor, but God bless you, because you really changed my life, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Dude, me too. Tony Robbins is a huge reason why like I have this like the mindset I have now. Because that first year when that, like going back to what I was saying, like that first year when that clicked for me, I immediately dove into like a new morning routine. Every morning I wake up, I still to this day, going on 3 years, the first thing I do when I wake up is I have a glass of water, I have my coffee, and I put in headphones and I listen to inspiration, and it's usually compilations of like really inspirational people like Les Brown, Joe Dispenza, who I was talking about before. Tony Robbins is always on there, and it's really just a lot of motivational stuff, and it just kicks me into gear into the like in the morning. So like if that whole thing, the 2020 COVID happened for my first year of sobriety, I don't think it would have changed a lot. I would have worked out. It would have made it easier almost to stay away from people. I think would have gave me that excuse. But then again, I didn't do it the normal way. A lot of people need support. A lot of people need like, and I'm not bashing like support, like going to AA meetings, because I've been to them, and I love the community, and like I still would go to some today. It's not to say that I haven't needed it, but like I've found a way to really progress my life.
Right.
And it's kept me like really hungry for more. So like I haven't even like thought about drinking, but AA is something that's huge for people. Support's big, and that would be a tough thing, I think, for really anybody coming out of any type of addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. It really sounds like it, and I think you're right. Like I feel like most people, and maybe this just comes from a comfort zone type thing, they just need something. They need someone in their corner. They really need that support. Like. And I guess that's why most people don't live like the entrepreneur lifestyle like we were talking before, because when you become an entrepreneur with whatever it is, like whatever venture you're exploring, you're basically saying like, society is wrong, or there's like a problem in society, and I believe I can fix that problem. And no one else is going to be with you because no one else shares that vision. Otherwise, it would have already been invented and would already be done, like at the end of the day, or in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So I do think you're right. I do think people really just need that support. And if you can, but I will say, if you can, I really believe if you can do it on your own, like you've done, like that's a very dangerous recipe for success, because you never care what anyone thinks. It's like you don't need anyone. Like you can completely just go on your own and explore all your own ventures, whatever they may be. And it's just hard for me not to imagine success coming out of that.
Yeah, it is. It's not just like, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to do it on my own. Like, you need support. You need a lot of things to be able to keep you in check. And I think AA kind of helps you progress. It has the steps. But I think like what I learned from Tony Robbins is people are not happy if you're not progressing.
Right.
And I think what he applies to people, like his clients, because a lot of his clients, I'm sure like a lot of them have addictions, but a lot of his clients are like people who are celebrities who just aren't happy. But I think the stuff that he teaches could go for anybody.
Right.
So I've really like applied the progress and like all that type of stuff to my life. So like I didn't do AA because I kind of had Tony Robbins, but I also had support. I had my aunt who was always there for me.
Right.
And for that entire time, and she's still there for me. We have a really close relationship. And Casey has had my back from, day one when I was struggling really bad. And she's been my best friend throughout this whole thing.
Right.
So like I didn't do it alone to the point where I had no support. I had a couple people, but support is extremely important.
Gotcha.
I just didn't go to like the support groups or anything like that, which, are still very helpful.
Right. And you said something that made me kind of think about this a little bit, but I feel like there's more of a crisis of importance of meaning in this country. I feel like and not just with like stuff like that, but I'm talking about like in society in general. Like maybe you get laid off from your job, maybe you get fired, and you're kind of thinking, or maybe you can't find a job, and you're like, what is wrong with me? Like, why does no one want me? And I feel like that's thoughts that a lot of, I guess, people have, and they're almost like shoved under the rug because society just says don't talk about it, like don't make other people feel bad, it's no one else's business. But in all reality, I feel like it's something a lot of people suffer from, and I think this mindset comes from just a false sense of reality. I feel like it starts when you're younger and in school. Like, all right, like if you don't get a good grade on this test, like you're an idiot. Like if you don't, I guess, graduate high school in 4 years, then what are you doing? Like if you don't go to college, like that's wrong. Like you're taking a wrong path. And I feel like just everything's like so structured along the way. It almost sets people up for failure when they face any sort of adversity like that.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think the way society's set up is kind of, I think it's done on purpose in a way, it's kind of like, look over here at this distracting object, look at TV, look at all this to try to prevent you from going and getting what you want. I feel like society was set up in a way so humans were kind of people to pay taxes and, pay into society. And like, it's really easy to teach people to go get a job where you're working for your life and paying taxes rather than to teach people to go and make their own money.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah,
100%.
And it's flawed. But what sucks is what's crazy is the information's out there. There like a lot of people like, oh well, like there's people who don't have that type of stuff where you're not shown how to do this or that, like inner city and stuff like that. And I understand that. I wasn't shown anything, but like once that clicked for me, all that information was available for me. I had to go look for it though.
Yeah.
And I had to find what I needed. I needed to search for in Google. Everyone has phones and you can go to books, like look up how to change habits and really commit to that.
Right.
And it's really hard. And it's hard when you don't have people around you that are interested in that, because then you just don't feel like, it's cool or it's necessary.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Like say you come from a family of entrepreneurs. It's very easy to start to piece things together. Like, okay, I can do this. I can start this business.
Yeah.
That business can bring in that. Like, I don't want to say you have everything laid out for you, because I mean, you still need to figure it out on your own. But at the same time, like you have the community, like you have that support, like you have your dad telling you this story about how, maybe it's something like Elon Musk where Tesla was 3 hours away from going bankrupt. There's something insane. I don't even know how that's even possible, to be honest. Or maybe your mom's telling you a story about how when she was down and out and she came back and she really, I guess, revved up the engines and just came storming back. They did a great job and put out this fantastic product that changed the world. It's so much easier when you have someone so close to you that's done it. And the problem is with society, most people haven't done it. And I'm not saying like the entrepreneur lifestyle or bust, like you're an idiot if you're not starting your own business. But I think the mindset of like you can be put in bad situations and you can find your own way out of them, and you don't need to, I guess, rely on someone else. You don't need to rely on an employer. You don't need to rely on anyone to get you out of that mess. That's the mindset I think everyone should have.
Yeah, and I think it's not only society, but it's just laziness. At a certain point, even like when you say you're 20 and you've had a bad run, you know, you've just been dealt a bad hand. You haven't been shown anything. You're in a crap school. And it's like at that point in time, you've had so many bad habits and so many stories that you tell yourself, to the point where, you know, people, I've found, and I learned from Tony Robbins, going back to Tony Robbins, the guy's a G, that, you know, when you people tend to live their life based on the story that they believe for themselves.
Right.
So, you know, everything that you have up in through your life up until that point is how you base, you know, your view of yourself.
Right.
So it's hard to really get out of that unless you really, really want it. And some people don't want to admit to themselves that they have to make big changes because it's harder to do.
Yeah. I truly believe that's part of the reason why people don't grow, and I guess most people see a lack of success because they want to stick with what they're comfortable doing, which, I mean, I guess is fine at the end of the day if that's all you want to do. But the thing is, like, if you're not pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, it's going to be so much harder to grow. Like, imagine if, like, I don't know, Joe Rogan never started that podcast.
Exactly,
like,
because he was afraid of it.
Yeah, like, imagine if he never started that. Imagine if Nick Wright, hi Nick if you're watching this, imagine if he never started that YouTube channel. Imagine, what would he be doing right now? I'm probably working at a trade that he's mentioned that he was going to do, but just imagine if they stayed in their comfort zone and they never branched out of it. What do you think would happen? And
right.
I think,
like if Michael Jordan was ever, you know, afraid to shoot a three throw.
Imagine if he got cut when he got cut from his high school team, he never played basketball.
Yeah,
again.
crazy story.
Crazy.
That guy has an amazing life story.
Imagine what would happen. Imagine where he would be right now.
And that's kind of where and that's kind of the process. You know, that's originally why my subtitle on my YouTube's The Process, because I've learned that, like, it really is living life and becoming who you want to be is on the other side of fear.
Right.
And, like, I'm still to this day, like, I'm 3 years in and, like, I'm still trying to convince myself to do this or not be afraid of that. Or even before I came here, I'm like, it's going to be fun because, like, I've never done a podcast. You know, it makes me nervous, but I knew, like, this is an experience.
Right.
And it's you have to push through the uncomfortable to be able to become a new you and the person that you want to be.
Let's talk about habits, because we've mentioned that a couple of times. So
they're huge. It's everything.
So I read a book, and I'm sure you might have read it. I think you said you read it, but I read the book, The Power of Habit, or I listened to it on Audible recently. And he talked about how in the book, if you really want to break a bad habit, one of the best ways to do it is to replace that habit with a new one. So, for example, say you have a sleeve of cookies every day at 3 o'clock. Well, rather than just not eating anything at 3 o'clock, it might be better to replace that sleeve of cookies with an apple, for example. So how have habits, I guess, really shaped your battle with addiction? And what habits did you implement that were good to replace that habit of drinking and doing drugs and all that?
Habits are literally everything. Your life is literally just you're working around doing habits.
Your life is a habit.
Your life is a habit. So if you can find a way to master your habits, you will master your life. And I do have that book. I haven't read it yet. I literally bought like a bunch of books that I want to read, and I'm trying to get through them all. But The Power of Habit's one of them. It's
a really good book. Like, he talks about in the book how some of like the best athletes, like, they don't know what they're doing to a degree. And what I mean by that is they're so trained, like, in their minds, and their bodies are so trained, like, they just know what to do. Like, for example, you can take Tom Brady. Like, he doesn't know where he's going to throw the ball exactly whenever he drops back in the pocket, but he knows how to go through his read, and he knows like how to find the open guy, and all of that is just a habit. And that when he goes through his progression, he knows where he's going to hit the guy. Yeah, a habit I learned from the book I'm actually reading now, Becoming Supernatural. A habit's when your body learns how to do something better than your mind. Which is why, you end up, it just becomes second nature. Just like driving home. Like, I don't know if you've ever driven home and you're like, how did I get here? Like, what? Yeah, you're just like zoning out. Yeah, because your body has learned something better than your mind. Right. So that's when it becomes hard, because when your body learns almost everything that you do throughout the day, those habits, it knows it better than your mind to the point where you're just doing them. Which is why when you go to change habits, it feels uncomfortable because your body's like, no, let me get back into my comfort zone. Right. So
habits, when I first got sober, I had to change everything. So I was extremely, and I've had practice. It's not just like I literally went into sobriety and just immediately was like perfect. I mean, I did really strive for perfection, which was another, a bad way to look at things.
Right.
But it took me practice. I got sober and then relapsed like 4 to 6 times before I actually, got on this one.
Right.
So like I was practicing in figuring things out, and every time I relapsed, I would come back, be sober, and adjust things that didn't work. And this time I kind of just, something clicked, and I started changing my habits right away. As I changed, I had a morning routine. I started waking up early. I understood that what you listen to is really kind of how you think. So that really stuck with me. So the first thing I started listening to every day was motivation, to be able to start to amp myself up for the day.
Right.
Instead of waking up, checking my emails or checking my Facebook or, thinking about problems that I've had.
Right.
I'm waking up and the first thing I'm thinking of or I'm listening to is something motivational, where I'm prepping myself for what I want for my future. So that was really important for me. It was the morning routine. Exercising was the biggest thing that I think at first was a game changer for me, because not only does exercise, first of all, it allows you to set goals, and once you succeed at your goal, it makes you feel better and makes you want to strive for more. But you just working out just naturally releases endorphins and you feel better. So it makes you feel good, and you get to destroy all your goals at the same time. So
right.
it's amazing. So working out, morning routines, I started counting calories, because I started bulking and then I got fat, and I was like, this isn't working. So I looked up how to count my calories and did that, and that worked. If you're having problems with sticking to your working out goal, I suggest just count your calories for like 3 to 6 months. Once you reach that goal, it will change your life, and then you won't even have to count calories anymore. You'll know everything's possible. But all those habits, it literally, it makes up my days now. 3 years in, I still have the same morning routine. I still go to the gym all the time. I'm still implementing new habits. Like I recently started trying to read books more, because you hear everybody like CEOs read books and all this stuff. So I bought a bunch of books, and I've never read books my entire life, but the last year I've actually read about like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
All like self-help books, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Money Master the Game, Tony Robbins.
That's a great book. I think every person should read that book.
Who has time to write that many pages? It's like 700-page books.
The thing is, like with that book, like I feel like a lot of people out there, they're just like, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, they're just, those are obviously anomalies for a lot of reasons, but I don't think that's the right mindset to have in a lot of circumstances. Like I think you should look at the guys that are worth like 10 million, 25 million, because that's a very achievable number for a lot of people out there. You just have to literally apply yourself.
Yeah.
But everyone reads books. I think it just depends on what books you're reading.
Right. And what's going in.
Right. And I feel like that Tony Robbins book, that one I think everyone should read, especially if you're someone out there that's not good with money, not good with finance. Maybe you're struggling with your spending, whatever the case may be. I think that is a 10 out of 10 book. I was talking to some kid at work because I work at the country club on the side a little bit. I don't think I told you that before we started recording. But I was talking to him, and he just turned 18, and he's kind of dabbling into the stock market a little bit. And he's like, how did you learn? I'm like, dude, I just read like every book I possibly could. Mm-hmm. And that was the first book I recommended to him. I'm like, that'll probably put a lot of things into perspective for you.
Yeah. It breaks it down and shows the importance of like compound interest and all that.
Yeah.
He's just, it's a just very straightforward book, and he talks to the best in the game in there.
Yeah. And it's like simple too. Like if you hear a guy like maybe Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger talk, you might be like, what is this guy saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know any of these words.
I don't speak Spanish.
Like I have to spend more time like Googling what these words mean as opposed to listening to the interview. So people get frustrated and stop. But that book is like very simple terminology. And like I said several times, and I'll probably keep saying, it really puts things in perspective.
Yeah. Books, I think, are the best way to get your information.
Well, it's because you also got to remember, like when you go on a computer, and I do think like Googling or like all these different things, that's definitely beneficial once you have, I guess, developed the skill of learning. But the book is like the first thing where it's like, all right, I have to put this here and I have to read it. If you're looking at your phone, you're not reading the book. Like if you're on the computer, you can still like get access to your email, get access to your phone. There's ads on there. Like there's all these distractions. Ooh, let me book an all-exclusive vacation to the Bahamas. Oh, what's COVID numbers at? There's all these things on there. But with books, it's like I literally have to sit here and focus on this, or it's not going to get done.
Yeah, and I think it just like keeps your mind active in a way where you just you get smarter.
I do.
You're just able to be able to talk better and figure out problems easier just because your brain's active.
Right. So what other new habits are you trying to implement now? I know you mentioned the motivation stuff that you implemented when you first started getting sober. Are you trying to implement anything else new right now?
Meditation. So I started reading Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. I know I skipped a few books. I don't know if anybody watching this knows Joe Dispenza, but he has a few books before that. But he goes into the neuroscience of like how, certain meditations, how to pretty much tap into your subconscious mind and strive for your goals. Pretty much how to program yourself to be able to almost easily attack your goals by raising awareness to certain opportunities, just using your subconscious mind. But meditation's a huge one. The big thing with the entrepreneurial life, like, moving into YouTube again after learning this music production, it's like after all this time, I'm trying to convince myself, like, just keep going. And sometimes I have to try to remind myself like why I'm doing it. And I want to learn how to enjoy the process.
Right.
Rather than stressing myself out about what I need to do, I want to try to learn better to focus on the moment that I'm in right now and try to just enjoy it for what it is.
Right.
Enjoy the experience, enjoy what I'm learning, enjoy doing this, because instead of stressing about, worrying about what people think of me, worry about like more of the experience, the conversation we're having.
Right.
Just trying to find ways to stay in the moment is a big one for me right now. And it's funny because you can't learn everything at once. And I was watching you and Nick talk, and that's something that he brought up when you guys were talking about the real estate and stocks. He was like, you can only learn one thing at a time.
Right.
And it's so true. There's only so much you can do. You can't do everything at once. And that's a huge problem that I've had. Like I've tried to do everything, and then you spread yourself too thin where you end up not doing much of anything.
Right.
So it's really, even though it feels like you're not doing anything, just look at the big picture. Just to see what you need to do, write it down, what the plans are, and then focus, collect yourself, and then figure out what's the next right thing to do, and just do that.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like when people start like a new venture, and I know I kind of touched upon this earlier, or they start something different, they try to do too much at once, and I think that's the issue. Like, if you look at all my videos, like I think there's over 150 videos now on my channel. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
If you go back from the first one to the one I posted on Monday, it's like it's two completely different people editing those videos. And that's how it should be, because you're not supposed to start at the top.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if like Michael Jordan just like picked up a basketball and was the greatest player ever. Like the first time he picked up basketball.
It's not fun.
Like it's not fun, and it's like that would mean anyone can do it, but not everyone's supposed to do this. Like, you really have to separate yourself from everyone else.
Yeah. Warren Buffett said something like that. He said, I think he was talking about enjoying the process, because he's like, if you could grab a golf club and hit a hole in one every single time, sure, you'd have fun with the TV and everything, but it wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
You wouldn't enjoy doing it anymore.
Right.
Because you just knew what you were getting out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of makes this process, it's like a battle. And I think life is like that. I think life is just a test. It tests you. It puts these huge goals through all this stress, all these problems that you think about, and it's really kind of like testing you, like, find a way to do this, because like once you get it, you're going to realize everything you were stressing about was unnecessary.
Yeah. And then along the same lines, everything's figure outable in this day and age. I know that's not a word. I'm going to trademark that. J Fenton 2021. But think about it, like you were saying before, like, you can figure out anything. Like, you can Google things, like, and even if you don't have like a laptop or a smartphone, like, you can go to the library and use the computer for free. Like, there's always a way to figure things out. It just comes down to, I guess, time management and how bad you want it at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. You got to want it, keep pushing forward, plan out what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Stay focused, and don't get too far ahead of yourself. Don't take life so seriously.
Right.
And that's still something I'm working on, but it's all just a learning process. And at the end of the day, I'm sure everybody who's done this, who's figured it out, has looked back and been like, I wish I enjoyed that a little bit more.
I have a theory that most people don't know what they're doing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, literally, like, I feel like people look at someone and they're like, wow, he's got it all figured out. I'm like, no. I don't think people understand, like, everything could look completely different tomorrow for a lot of people. And
exactly,
I always thought that when I was like, in my late teens, my early 20s, I would look at someone who's like 25, 26. I'd be like, they just got it figured out. And now that I'm 25, I'm like, they didn't have it figured out. They just portrayed themselves like they had it figured out. Yeah. And I feel like that's going to carry over into my 30s. It's going to carry over into my 40s, carry over into my 50s. I just feel like people are just trying to figure it out as it goes along.
Absolutely. And there's plenty of people who've been in like a situation where you are right now, where they're working, they feel like nothing's happening, and then something huge happens the next day, and then they be like something just happens for them.
Yeah.
And it's really like, find out what you're doing, keep trying stuff until it works.
Right.
Just keep trying. And if something doesn't work, try something else.
Right.
And try something else and try something else until it works. Because, if you try once and it doesn't work and you give up, it's like you have no chance of getting your goals.
Right.
Just keep at it. And just, and the more we do this too, the more I started doing like YouTube and trying to learn things, I realized not only how hard it was, but also how easy it is.
Yeah.
Like that you just really have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I've realized like how everybody is really, all these people who have this stuff are no different than us.
Yeah.
It's just how they got there. They took certain steps that worked.
Right.
And life's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
One of the books I recently just listened to on Audible was The 5 a.m. Club. Have you ever read it?
No. That sounds awesome though. I've heard about it.
Different from what I normally read. It's more of a fictional story. I don't read a lot of fiction books, but
it's fiction?
It's a fiction book.
Oh, it sounds like a self-help.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like when I was looking it up, I was thinking, is this the right book? Like it's a fiction book, but it is a fiction book. Basically about this sorcerer, I guess, for lack of a better term. I can't remember like what exactly his title is, we'll say. But him and a few others go on, I guess, a retreat, more or less. Again, for lack of a better term, I can't remember off the top of my head. And he really shows them the power of waking up at 5 a.m. every single day, the power of kind of like winning your morning, about getting up before everyone else. And it really put a lot into perspective for me. And I've always been an early riser. I'm like 4 or 5 a.m. like always. I'm always up early. Even on the weekends, I'm not working. It's usually, sometimes I'll give myself like one day a week where it's like, you know what, no alarm, like sleep as late as you want. And it's usually pretty close, like maybe 6 or 7 o'clock. It's usually not too late. But I've always been an early riser. But this really kind of showed me how important it is to wake up before everyone else. And on the flip side of that, and I understand, like Matthew Walker talks about in his book, how there's different people in society. Like there's going to be, I can't remember what he calls them, but there's like morning people and then there's like night owls. And society's like corrupted or like flipped in a way where it doesn't cater to those night owls because you're just naturally programmed to be up at night. So another reason, going back to why schools and the workforce, it's just not like the move. It's not like the motive. It's not right for every single person. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, even if you stay up late at night, there's going to be distractions. Like you might have a friend that stays up late at night. You might have, I don't know, maybe follow sports as a game on. Maybe there's like a highlight you want to watch. Like there's all these different things that are like pulling your attention in. Maybe there's something that you're just catching up on from the day that's already happened that you didn't get a chance to like look at because you were busy at work. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, no one's texting you.
Yeah.
Like if someone texts me at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, is someone dying? Because why are you
Exactly.
why are you awake? Because I'm the only one that's awake during this hour, and you aren't it. You are not the other one.
Exactly. Dude, 5 a.m. is where it's at. I'm a night owl. I'm one of those ones guilty of, it's just so easy for me to stay up. But 5 a.m. you can get so much. I love it. I wake up at 5 a.m. but I've had to adjust to my schedule to be able to do so because it's hard for me because like it's so easy for me to just carry it away and stay up till like 11.
Right.
And like sleep's important for me. So like I won't miss my sleep. I'll have to get at least 7 hours. So if I stay up at 11, I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting up at 5. So I try to get to bed for 9. So I get my sleep.
Right.
But 5 a.m. you wake up, the world is asleep. You go out, the birds are chirping. I can drive over and get like a coffee if I didn't prep my cold press because that's what I'm into now. Press of coffee. But you can go get your coffee. Nobody's on the road.
It's beautiful.
Nice.
I
you
go
can
running
get so much done. Like I could go get a walk in, listening to motivation, come back, start laundry, do some stuff, whatever. You get so much done, and the next thing you know, you look and it's like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and you're like, this is when people are getting up, and I've already done so much.
I also feel like it has a big impact on mental health once you get used to it, because I think some people feel like, especially maybe someone in their like, I don't know, early 30s or maybe early 20s, late 20s, whatever the case may be. They might be that type of person where it's like, all right, let me set an alarm for 7 o'clock. I got to be at work for 8:30. But the thing is, by giving yourself those extra 2 hours, I just feel like there's more meaning to your life because you don't always feel consumed in work. Because a lot of times it might be like, all right, like I just said, set an alarm at 7, get to work for 8:30, go to work, get stressed out at work, go home, think about how stressed out you were at work, then go to home.
It's
go
and
to
that's
bed,
true.
and then do it all over again.
And that's completely true. My morning routine makes or break my day. Like makes or break it makes or breaks my day. So if I wake up and I somehow miss the 5 a.m. and I sleep late and it's like 7, you get up, you're immediately rushing around. You get, like you said, you're stressed, you're in the drive, you reach traffic, you're like, this sucks. You get to work, you're like, this sucks. You leave work, you're in traffic again, you're like, wow, this sucks.
Dude,
and then you get home and you're like, that sucks.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, so like 5 a.m. you get the chance. Like my morning routine, I've noticed some days when I have a stressed out day or I'm having like a rough patch, I know I look back and I try to analyze what happened. And a lot of times I'm not sticking to my routine.
Yeah.
So I'll go back. I'll have to get to bed early. I wake up at 5, get right back into my routine. In the morning routine, waking up early, collecting myself. I always love getting a stretch in and like foam rolling before I start my day too.
Right.
And then, just that makes a huge difference on the outlook. I've read somewhere that the way you feel or the way you're thinking in the first 15 minutes of your day is going to determine usually how you're going to act throughout the rest of the day.
That's very possible.
And how you're going to handle your problems. So if you wake up and you're immediately stressed out or you're rushing around and trying to get things done, you're kind of already starting your day worked up and you're not going to, be able to collect yourself.
Yeah. I just feel more motivated at work, I guess. What you think it'd be the opposite. You might be like, you got an extra 2 hours of sleep. You're going to be more awake at work. I don't think that's the case because you start going through like your morning routine. You start checking off these habits that maybe you do in the morning or you get through these chores. You're kind of like already on a roll and you're already setting yourself up to tackle more of your day, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's disciplines too. When you do certain disciplines, it subtly, like not subtly, subconsciously, like that matters to you. Everything, that's something I've learned. Everything matters.
Right.
Every little thing, even if you don't realize it, it matters. Like when you wake up, you make your bed. Like you don't hit snooze on your alarm. You get right up. All those disciplines you hit, they matter. They add up, and it makes you want to tackle the next one and then the next one.
Right.
So it's huge. And what's crazy, going back to the 5 in the morning thing, I've realized that it's actually been a lot easier for me to get up when I have something like podcast or YouTube, something that you're working for.
Right.
It motivates you more where I don't even need an alarm.
Yeah.
Like when I'm, especially like if I'm in the middle of a song and I'm super inspired by it, like I wake up even if I don't have enough sleep just because I'm ready to do my stuff.
What does your morning routine look like? I know you've talked about it like bits and pieces, but why don't you put everything together?
So my morning routine is you wake up. The first thing I do is I go over the bed. I grab my headphones. I put my headphones in. I play a motivation YouTube, and because of the YouTube algorithm, it just keeps feeding me new ones. So I don't even have to scroll through.
So you
anything.
just click on the
I
first
just
one
open
that
it
comes
up,
up.
first one, and like I've saved ones I liked, but it's just so easy. So I click that. The motivation plays. I'll walk into the kitchen. I get a cup of water to start up my body, and then I have a French press that I keep in the fridge for 12 hours. So that that's what I have right after the water. Once I have my coffee, I usually go out into the deck and I watch the sunrise because during this time of the year, the summer, the sun is like perfectly like this little orange ball in the sky at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
so
I know I'm up there.
It's nice. When it's in the winter, it's dark.
Yeah.
But so I go out, I sip my coffee, listening to motivation. I visualize because that's a big thing. I visualize my goals and my dreams, and I try to feel what it feels like to be able to have my goals and dreams, just to help try to program myself. I just try to enjoy that morning. I go inside, I get a little bit of stretching in, I get my foam rolling in. And then at that point, depending on what time it is, maybe like I'll open up my music and work on it if I have a few minutes, but usually I don't. Usually at that point I'll have to wake up Carson and get him going.
Right.
And then I'll make his lunch first and then I'll wake him up, because if I wake him up, it's all hell breaks loose.
That's funny.
But yeah, then I get him up, we get up changed, I'll have my shower, get changed up, look in the mirror, make sure I'm looking good, and then take off for work, start my day on a good note.
Now, how did you try out different morning routines to come to that, I guess, consensus, or was that just like the first thing you tried and all worked out for you?
It started out with the morning, the motivation in the morning. I started waking up and doing that. And then I started waking up, it's been a few different things, exercising, but I stumbled on mobility, because mobility is huge for me at 30 years old now, or even like 3 years ago when I was 27. It's starting to get into if I don't keep up with my mobility, I just
move.
feel, I don't move for the whole day. So I ended up learning, like, I'm just going to do mobility as often as possible. So I just started doing mobility pretty early on. This morning routine's been practically the same morning routine for about 3 years now. So it really kind of just started this way. And now if I try to start new things, it just doesn't feel right. Like, I've been trying to do breathing meditations in the morning, but that breaks into my usual morning routine. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But, and that's something that just kind of, you have to find what works for you.
Yeah.
And that works for me. It's just listening to motivation and you doing mobility and getting my mind right.
I change up my morning routine a lot of the time, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm just like that type of person that I guess, I don't want to say needs that dopamine rush, but it really helps me to like change things up. So, and I don't mean like dramatic changes where it's going to be like, one day I get up at 5, the next day I might get up at 3, or maybe one day, I don't know, like ridiculous things, ridiculous differences. I can't think of an example, but so I try to like structure out, because especially working from home, I'm going to be interested to see how this works and how I structure this when I go back to the office very shortly. But right now I might like think like, okay, like I can use the first hour to like read, I can use the second hour to like edit, and I can use the third hour to kind of do whatever I want. Like I kind of structure it like by hours, and I think that's something that's working for me right now. But recently, what I've just very, very recently, like this week, I've started running in the morning. Mm-hmm. And especially because some days I might work a double, so I might like work and then go to my other job. There's not a lot of time for exercise, so I find like running in the morning, like, and I might just go for like a light, like 5-mile jog. Yeah. Like, and it like really makes me feel like great to get that exercise out of the way. Like, and I feel it like some days I'm like, screw it, I'm not running today. Like, I'm just, I just don't have it. Yeah. And maybe I did like an intense leg workout yesterday. The bottom line is I do not want to run. And I just feel like not guilty, but I don't feel as in good of a mood. Like I feel like more, I guess, like pissy, for lack of a better term.
That's fully understandable, because I've incorporated, now that you say that, I guess I have mixed it up a little bit. Like I do exercise in the morning. Like sometimes I'll throw in, like before it was burpees and something just to get my heart rate up. But now most recently, since I've been doing the music production, I've been reserving my free time at night for the work, and instead of putting my gym time there. So during that first like hour, it's that get my mind right, the coffee, water, mobility. But now I realize now, like I'll go to the gym right after that. So I'll be at the gym for around like 6 in the morning. Right. And I've been getting my workouts in before work and then heading to work. So like I have Carson 1 week on, 1 week off. So the week that I don't have, I'm at the gym in the morning first before work. I have to be at work for 8. And then after work, when I get out at 4, I come home and I do work. So I work on I leave work and then come home and do my own work for me. Right. And then when I do have Carson, Casey and I kind of split it. She's a huge help. So she'll like, that's good. And she loves him too. She's pumped to like take him to camp or anything. So she's always like, we kind of go half and half. Whoever it depends on our schedules. One person will go in the morning, the other will go in the afternoon.
That's awesome. Yeah. How do you feel about like productivity? Like, because we're only here for so many years, mm-hmm. and we only have so many hours in a day. How do you, I guess, like remain productive? Like, because obviously having a son and then working 8 hours a day and then working after work, like you said, obviously, like you want to get the most out of the time from when you wake up at 5 to when you go to bed at 9. So do you have any like tricks to kind of stay as productive as possible?
It's almost a mix. Everything kind of, works together. So like you kind of have to keep everything, like my routine together, like the morning routine plays in it. It's like to stay productive, I have to keep my mind right, because if my mind's not right, I'm not going to be as creative or as excited to do the stuff I need to do after a gym session and a work day. So it's really important to wake up, get my mind right, because stress is overwhelming. Like it's really overwhelming. And my morning routine's kind of, because of all the work I've been doing lately, it's kind of taken a backseat a little bit. I've been waking up a little bit later, right. And it's crazy because when you don't tend the garden, the weeds grow back. They do. Like I've been having a harder time waking up and setting my mind right, and my negative thoughts, my negative patterns that I used to have start to come back. Right. So I've been incorporating my morning routine again to start to like get my mind right. So it's really important to keep the routine together and really like plan out my day. That's another one. So like kind of like stick to it. Like if you write it down what you need to do for the day, stick to that plan, because it's really easy to get sidetracked with something. Right. I don't go on social media, which is something I need to work on, because if I'm going to start stepping into the YouTube with after this music thing, like I need to be more involved.
Right.
But like I've deleted the Facebook off my phone, Instagram off my phone. So it's like I don't keep those distractions around because it's so easy to get involved in one thing and just look, and next thing you know, it's been 20 minutes and you're like, what did I even look at?
Right.
So it's really just make a plan, schedule out what you need to do, and stick to that plan. Don't sway off that plan at all.
Right.
So when you get out of work, if you say like, I try to imagine my life as if I'm living above my life, like playing Sims. Like
Right.
if I'm trying to build my character up, what do I want my Sim to do? You know, because like I'm gonna have that dude start working out.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? And so when I get out of work, I'll say like, what would I do right now in a perfect world? And it's
Right.
like I would get right to work and do music production, because half the time you don't want to, because sometimes like you're not inspiration. That song I just showed you before we started, it was really hard for me to get inspired for that.
Right.
So like I was just really in a creative rut, and times like I was trying to like put off time, but I just, I kept showing up, and then something happened.
Something Rogan said, I don't remember where I heard him say this, but I definitely heard him say this. He said something about how you should live your life like a camera crew is following you to make a movie about you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think by doing that, like, you're going to be a lot more productive. Another thing I heard, I don't know if you follow Ali Abdallah at all, but very good for productivity. Like, would definitely recommend if you're ever like in any sort of rut, or like you need some new time management tricks. One thing he says is just do something for 2 minutes. So it's like editing a video, like music, whatever the case is, just do it for 2 minutes. And you're going to find like once you do it for 2 minutes, you're going to be set, because you're going to be like ready to go, and you're going to have that like momentum, like that first domino is going to fall.
Yeah.
You're going to keep going. I'm like, that's a great idea.
It is.
And ever since I've seen him make that video, I've implemented that as well. And I find he's right. Like, if I can just do something for a couple of minutes, like just getting started, it's like there's essentially like a wall in front of me, like to get to the laptop. But once I like get to the laptop, I break through the wall and I really sit down and I start doing it. So much more productive, so much better. It's like I completely forget that I never wanted to do this.
Yeah, the magic starts happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't say this before, but like one of those habits I've incorporated that's part of the process is writing. I write all the time, just how I'm feeling, checking in with myself, writing my goals down. I'll write down like what I need to do. Like I'll plan my days out. There are some days where I'll go like a week in a row where I write almost the same paragraph, what I want out of my life, and it's almost exactly to a T, just to
Right.
keep it alive.
Yeah.
And it's writing, starting, just doing something, getting started, showing up. It's all important. It all plays a huge role in just, staying productive.
Right. So what kind of like, I don't want to say like habits, but what have you really like cut out to really become more productive?
Drinking alcohol.
I think that's the worst thing for productivity.
Yeah.
Like that book, Matthew Walker, I think every person should read that book. That really puts so much into perspective on how important sleep is to me. And I feel like I've mentioned Joe Rogan so many times in this podcast.
It's because they're all good.
that's the
Tony
thing.
Robbins, like there's all these people. That's one thing I think is that we do, like especially like as entrepreneurs, is we look up to people who have their stuff going, and they all like connect. They all are inspirational and they all connect. Like when you're on YouTube, there's algorithms send you right to those other videos, and you're just
Right. And I actually explained this in a video. This video's already been out by the time you guys are seeing this, so this is probably going to seem a little repetitive. But Matthew Walker talks about how there's two types of sleep. There's non-REM, and then there's REM sleep. So I guess I could have said non-REM and REM sleep, but
Yeah.
you get the point. So, but non-REM sleep is kind of like, how like when you're tossing and turning in the middle of the night, you roll over and looking at the clock. You're not actually like asleep. Then there's REM sleep. That's like that deep sleep.
rapid eye movement.
Right. Like that's like that, like when you're dreaming. Like that's the type of sleep you really want. And what alcohol does is essentially blocks that. So you can't. So alcohol might help you fall asleep. It might help you get into that non-REM sleep. But you might find when you've been drinking, it's more like restless sleep. It's not like
You're more like sedated.
Right, exactly. Like, and then you might find, say you went out drinking the night before, you might find you wake up early, but the problem is you roll over and go back to sleep for another 6 hours. The reason that that's like that is because once that alcohol starts to wear off, your body craves that REM sleep. Like, I mean, like severely, severely craves it. So you might roll over, so you've been asleep for 7 hours, but you haven't gotten into that REM sleep just yet. So what you do is you roll back over and then you get into that REM sleep. So you slept a total of, 14 hours, but you might have only slept a total of 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's
which is why you wake up and you're like, I slept for like 10 hours. Why do I feel so tired?
But that's why alcohol is so bad, because it really, really ruins your sleep.
And sleep's huge for health. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, you see a lot of people who are like, I don't know how The Rock does it, because I'm pretty sure he like almost says like he doesn't sleep much.
It's so unhealthy for you. Like everyone's seen the video of Kobe Bryant talking about, I don't need a lot of sleep. I
Rest
only
in
sleep
peace.
3 to 4 hours. Yeah, R.I.P. But the thing is, when you're not sleeping a lot, and you hear people say all the time, like I just said, like only sleep 3 to 4 hours. I don't need a ton of sleep. It depends on the person. It's kind of like the person that's at a bar, like had a few drinks, and they decide, I'm going to drive home. And someone asks them, are you sure you're fine to drive? You're like, yes, I'm fine to drive. Are you sure? Yes, I'm fine to drive. But they're not fine to drive. They just believe that they're okay to drive. And they wake up the next morning like, oh, shoot, I definitely was not okay to drive. It's the same thing with sleep. You don't even realize how much you need sleep. And what happens is, you don't realize it till it's too late. So with alcohol, with that example I just gave, you realize it the next day. With sleep, you don't realize it until 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
Like once you get into like your 50s and 60s, you'll realize that you're at a higher risk of stroke, high risk of heart attack. Like there's so many different things.
Yeah.
Like that sleep is just like so imperative for. And when you're awake, you're essentially experiencing low-level brain damage. Like that's the way to look at it. And sleep repairs that. So when you're not sleeping, you're essentially giving yourself more brain damage.
Yeah, and you can see it too. You can see it in your skin. Like people who don't sleep that much, see it in their skin, and like sometimes their hair, their eyes, like the crow's nest, like around there. So it plays a huge factor in just everything.
Right.
And your mood is huge too. It's so you can recover.
Right.
And it's important, especially if you're working out. You're trying to build muscle and you're not sleeping that much. You're being counterproductive.
I talked about this in the video I'm working on now, but you know that when you don't get enough sleep, like I'm talking like I told you before, like 7 or 9 hours, that's the ideal time. Say you get 6 hours, your rate of physical exhaustion drops immediately by 30%. Immediately.
Really?
So,
Wow.
Say you went out and ran 10 miles today on 7 hours of sleep. Like that was like your best, your max, like all out. You ran 10 miles and you were on the ground like panting. Like that was like the best run you've ever had. Say you do the same thing next week. You go to run 10 miles, but instead of on 7 hours of sleep, you do it on 6 hours of sleep. You'd be gassed after 7 miles. Like, and it's that hour that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And people might be saying that's unrealistic. You look this up. This is factual. When the clocks get set back, right? So everyone loses an hour of sleep, or when they get set forward, when they get set forward and everyone loses that hour of sleep, guess how much heart attacks rise? Guess how much of an increase?
How many?
24%.
Really?
Just like that, from that 1 hour, that one day.
Like, is that in that?
That's
like in that day, that week, or that
day,
that period of time?
That
like,
day, they rise 24%.
Really?
You can Google it. Guess what happens when the clock
You
gets set
can
back?
Google it. What?
21% decrease.
Wow.
Just from that 1 hour.
And that's a stat.
You can Google it. Matthew Walker talks about in his book. He talks about on that podcast.
Can you Google that for us? I'm just kidding. Imagine like that Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
We have a guy over there.
Young-
You guys just don't see it.
Young Jamie.
Yeah. Can you pull up that clip?
That's so funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but sleep is huge, and it's a huge cause for early death.
Yes,
and
it
people
is.
don't realize
110%.
that.
It is, and people don't realize it too. It's too late. People think you need to stay awake longer to get more done, but in all reality, if you're staying awake longer, you're gonna live less.
Mm-hmm. And that's almost like the cool thing nowadays. Like, I don't know. As I get older, it seems like I'm more. It seems cooler to be, healthier and go to sleep early. But when I was in high school, and then even after high school, it was cool to stay up late and then throw on drinking on top of that. It's a recipe for disaster. You're just creating terrible habits that you have to break eventually.
It's awful. Yeah, it's 110% awful. Like, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more like alcohol just has like no real place in society. And don't take this the wrong way. I'm still gonna drink from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I enjoy going to breweries, I like trying different beer. Like, I like having drinks here and there, but at the same time, like, the more I can cut it out, like, the better. Because it's not so much from the aspect of it's going to affect me the next day. It's more, it's going to ruin my sleep. And even if I just have like a couple of drinks, I can feel it ruins my sleep completely. And I can't get into that deep sleep, which is obviously not good for productivity.
Wasted time, money, and health, empty calories.
Let's talk about mental health to finish up here, because I feel like that's very, very important. So 10% of youth people report having really poor mental health. 1 in 5 adults report having very poor mental health. So between the two of us, my roommate, his girlfriend, and the guy next door, one of us have poor mental health. Like, that's how simple it is. 37% of people in September, they reported that they think of suicidal thoughts daily or every other day. Never mind the people that are thinking about it once a week.
Wow.
Like, mind-boggling stack. And obviously the pandemics had probably skewed that data to a certain degree.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, I sent that to you in the email, so clearly you didn't read it.
I think I was just trying to play it.
But anyway, so what do you kind of think about, like, how someone can really better their mental health? Do you have any, I guess, strategies, tips, tricks, however you want to phrase it? What do you think is, like, the best way for someone to really take that first step in bettering their mental health?
Get off social media.
I think that's a killer.
I think social media nowadays is a huge, like, you can just see statistically, I don't know if you ever saw that, like, the social dilemma.
Yes.
Dude, like, the percentage of young people who commit suicide now compared to how they were before social media.
It's all highlights. It's awful.
It's terrible. That social media not only has, you naturally just compare yourself subconsciously to other people.
Yeah.
Like, it also shows you, like, all these news feeds, and using the algorithms pulls you down like these rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just stress, and you just don't feel complete because you're looking at everybody's highlight reel.
It's crazy. Like, that's the thing. It's all highlights. Like, people don't take it into consideration. Those people that are vacationing in Cancun, like, they're going to be going back to the office next week, or they're going to be living a normal job next week. But no one posts a picture of them sitting at a desk working because it's not interesting.
Right.
Like,
it's people, and it's so, like, joked about. Like, people don't take it seriously. Like, I see kids, like, children with tablets and phones. Like, I saw kids outside of my apartment like a couple weeks ago, and they had a phone, and I was listening because I was looking outside at Carson, he wasn't hanging out with them. He was a little bit farther, but they were right under me, and I could hear them talking about TikTok. And, like, they're kids, like, that were probably 8 years old, and they were saying, look at this is dope as shit, swearing, because all that stuff's available to them.
Yeah.
And, like, that's terrible to have a kid on any type of social media before they can even develop.
I'm interested to see what happens with these kids, like, eyesight as they get older, because so when you're looking at, like, essentially looking at a screen, your phone, like a TV, it really ruins, like, your distance sight. Like, really, really ruins it. So what you're supposed to do, from what I've listened to and what I've read, is for, say, every, I think, 30 minutes you're looking at a screen, you should spend 5 minutes, like, outside doing something, whether that's, running, walking, like, just staring off into space. Like, you should be looking at something. But people don't do that. And these kids, you think they're researching this stuff and knowing that? No, I don't blame them, because I wouldn't be doing it either if I were them. But the thing is, like, I wonder what their eyesight's going to be like when they get to, like, our age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That, and, like, their mental health, even worse. I'd rather be, I think, have crappy vision than feel like I'm going to, want to jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
And it's an issue that needs to collectively be solved. Like, it needs to be something that's made, it's cooler to not be on phones. And it's something that we're kind of in it's a weird time, because it came out, like, when I was a kid. Like, I got my first iPhone when I was 18.
Right.
And I think I was in a perfect transition, because it was just enough where I got enough life and outside, right, to be, like, old enough where I could have social media. But, like, we're in a time now where we're seeing kids, we don't know better. We have no studies on what it does to people. So now we're living in the time, like, we kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't realize it was going to screw up this many people, and now we need to backtrack and solve it. But too many people make money off of it.
I don't know if there's a way to solve it, like, from, I guess, a universal perspective. I don't think it's possible.
I don't think so either. As long as anybody's making money off people's attention, it's not going to happen unless those big dogs at the top decide that, morally it's better to.
That's the thing.
Or if somebody makes a law, like, you can't, just like alcohol, like, you can't drink unless you're this age. Like, you can't have social media accounts or phones that allow that until you're a certain age, which sounds huge, but, like, would you rather have a kid who is sitting there looking at himself in the mirror crying his eyes out because he doesn't feel good enough because he's looking at people with all these filters on social media?
But that's the thing. There's really no way to, I guess, like, separate that, because I remember when I first started signing up for, like, Facebook and MySpace back in the day. I'm really showing my age there.
Oh yeah, MySpace. Tom.
Tom,
if you're watching this, man, MySpace.
But when I started signing up for stuff like that, I don't remember how old you had to be. It might have been 18. I just plugged in, like, 1980. No one asked for anything. Okay, welcome to MySpace.
Yeah.
Like, and I just don't see a way that's
I didn't even know they
possible.
had that.
Yeah,
was it really an age thing?
Yeah, it was an age thing.
Oh.
That was there at one point in time.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's probably gone now.
I don't know. I'm over 18 now, so I have no idea.
Yeah, mental health it's just, we're in an age where it's like everything mixed together. You have social media, you have, the party life, you have just people with, there's so much, it's misinformation too, like so much misinformation about everything, like, as far as diets, like what's going on in the world, like even with social media and just creating polar opposites of just like even politically, like there's so many problems that are happening right now, and it doesn't help that you can pretty much, search engines are biased for any information you want, even if it's wrong. You can search something that's wrong and find something to confirm it, and we're in a time where like you can't come to a conclusion about any one subject.
I feel like it's also just partly like the person too. Like I feel like people are so ignorant these days. Like
ignorance,
they
laziness.
want to believe like what they want to believe. Like they don't even want to believe like 2 + 2 = 4. They're just like, they're looking for like that one article that says 2 + 2 = 5, and that's the one they're going to take and run with.
And it's wild because like there's so many conversations that I get into where I don't even explain myself or do anything just by judging how the person is. I know like you don't judge a book by a cover, but like at a certain point in a conversation, you can understand kind of where somebody's at. And there are so many times like I never explain myself, and this is how I know I'm getting more mature and stuff, because I used to always want to, prove that I'm right, and now I just find it unnecessary because there's so many people that like, you don't want to, if you're trying to convince somebody of something and they're just not about it, you're pretty much slamming your head into a wall,
right?
It's like there's so many times that I don't talk about anything like I believe in, unless it's people that like I can have a good conversation with,
right?
I don't talk about my goals and stuff, because people like, just naturally people are like, oh, that's they're like, not reasonable.
Oh, interesting. And they just put their head down.
Yeah, you just sound like a loser if I'm like, I want to go be a music producer.
Yeah.
So like, you don't talk to, because they're like, oh, nobody believes
it's crazy.
In anything.
Yeah, automatically. Like they don't hear your music. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know what you have in store. Automatically, they just shoot it down. Like automatically, they just assume you can't do it. Stupidest thing, right?
It's really frustrating.
Shouldn't it be like the opposite? Like, dude, that's awesome. Like, how are you doing that? Like, more gung ho. But no one cares. No one cares at all.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I always find it very disappointing. Like, I'm somebody who tries to like, 1% better every day. And like, it's so weird because I see so many people who don't care, but I care so much about people, and I don't understand why sometimes, because like, even on the highway, like when I'm driving, and it might be just the state, like so many people like are riding, they're tailgating, like nobody lets each other go, and like I'm sitting there, I'm leaving space, like if somebody needs to move and we're in traffic, I let them go. Like I'm so like nonchalant when it comes to stuff, even if I'm late, like I try not to let anything like overwhelm me. I try to understand what people do, and nobody does that.
No one does that.
No one. Everyone like just wants it their way, like Burger King.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, oh man, it's just so...
I'm just kind of disappointed.
Man. Yeah, it's like, and then like I have like kind of 3 groups of like friends, I guess. I have like the ones that I can talk about really anything with, like anything goes, like we're kind of in agreement with everything, our beliefs, whatever the case may be. Then there's those people, and there's very, very few of these. Like, I mean, very few. Like maybe there's like 2. It's like, okay, you think this way, I think this way. We can have a conversation, a debate. We can agree to disagree, move on. Then the majority of the population, it's like, well, the majority of the people I know, it's just like, I don't bring any of this up because I know you either don't want to talk about it because it's a taboo topic in your mind, or you just don't agree with it.
Right.
And it's just so...
bite your head off.
Yeah, it's just like, I just don't understand how like people can be so ignorant. Like just assume that you're like wrong before you even put your 2 cents in, before you even like give your thesis. Like, I will never turn down someone an opportunity to present something to me, whether it's a stock idea, whether it's a business idea, whether it's just an idea for your morning routine. I'll never turn it down. Now, it's going to get to a point if I don't agree with you and I know you have no idea what you're talking about, I'm just going to be like, all right, man, you're an idiot, like get out. But from the jump, I will never, ever turn down like an idea. Like, why would you? Because you never know what you're missing out on.
Yeah, I even if when I hear people speak about subjects, and we're talking about stuff that like I believe something differently, I'm super interested as to why they believe what they do. Like am I missing something?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So like I never am like, no, you're wrong. Like I'm curious, like if it's something I disagree with, I'm like, all right, well, why do you feel that way? Like I honestly want to know, because like I like to just know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I try to live my life assuming that I can learn something from everybody.
Right.
And it's not a quality that you find often.
I found that most people I've tried to dive into like that. I'll be like, why do you think that way? What's your meaning? Like all those different things. I find that most people cannot give a reason why they believe that. Like I find that they probably, maybe that was because of the way they're brought up. I think that's a big thing as well. Like, we can talk about that. So let me finish this thought first. But I think it might that really might be it, because people can't give like a thesis of why they believe in that. They're just like, it's right.
Right, because
like,
there's so much information out there that, like, so many videos, even if they're wrong, it sparks an emotion, and your emotion just it makes you, it charges you with that feeling like, oh, like that's wrong or whatever, and then you believe something because you felt something.
Yeah.
And then you don't really necessarily have all the facts, but it triggered an emotion. So like, it's hard to get through to people when they're emotionally charged by certain information.
Like, I can't even tell you how many times, and I'm sure most people watching this like really can't relate to this, but I've really believed in something. I really thought I was right in something, and I get to the very end of it. Maybe it's researching something, maybe it's an idea, whatever the case may be, and I've been wrong.
And then you're wrong.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I can admit when I've been wrong. In most cases. But most people can't. I feel like it's just a spitting contest.
It's honestly, a lot of people can't get out of their own way. Like, people don't grow past a certain point. You know, people just want to be right. They don't want to, you know, get out of their own way. They don't want to be wrong. It's more important for a lot of people to be right than to learn.
Right.
And that causes a huge issue. Like, that, those type of people will stay in the same spot their entire life, the same mental box.
I think it might be because of like upbringing too. Like, I think you just kind of naturally believe like what your parents believe. And I read this somewhere, like, say your parents are bad with money. Mm-hmm. Like, just for example, like that was the example the book used. You're going to be twice as more likely to be bad with money as, say, if your parents were good with money. Like, even if they don't talk about money, they treat it as a taboo topic, which obviously that's not something I really agree with for a lot of reasons. But if that's the case, then you're going to be likely to be more bad with money. And I feel like people don't branch out into different avenues, into different aspects, and really discover like different pathways. Like, if your parents are a Republican, you might be a Republican, but maybe you want to be a Democrat, or vice versa, like whatever the case may be. And people just don't research. Like, it's just boring to them. They would just rather watch Netflix or sit on social media. It like blows my mind.
Yeah, it's, you know, and it's not everyone's problem. Sometimes you're just dealt a bad hand.
Yeah,
you know, sometimes you're dealt a bad hand,
true.
And your family's really not, you know, they're not the best. They don't train you the way you should be. You know, they don't teach you about finances, getting your life together, or how to handle yourself emotionally or whatever. But, you know, it's, even though those things are not your problem, it is your responsibility to get yourself out of that.
Or at least try.
Try. You know, at least try. Like, try to, you're going to be all right in life if you just, you try to just progress in every area. Just assume that, you know, everything that happens to you is your fault. And try to learn from there. And you know, I promise you're going to surprise yourself with how much you develop, because a lot of people don't really want to do that. And it's common, and it's really hard.
It is hard.
It's hard to do.
Nothing about life is easy, but it's like, you have to understand, if you do the hard things, your life is going to be easy in the long run. But if you do the easy things, life is going to be very hard.
Yeah, I think I said that in a YouTube video.
Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I've said that in many videos. I think it's 100% true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Like, if it, and that's a huge indicator to something that, like, of whether I'm going to do it. Like, if I have something that's like, I'm approaching some type of, you know, problem in my life, or some type of obstacle, if I'm like, oh, I don't know, that's an indicator where I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I feel uncomfortable.
That's the thing. Like, I look at it the same way. I feel like sometimes, like in the past, I've really like held back because of a comfort zone type thing. And I really think about it, and I'm like, okay, is this endangering my life? Like, for example, like going skydiving, like I guess some people argue that's not endangering your life, but okay, that could in theory threaten my life. That's okay if I'm not comfortable doing that. But am I uncomfortable posting this YouTube video or this podcast because it's threatening my life? No. It's just because I'm nervous.
There's no
and
real
I'm
danger.
Exactly. Like, what's the worst that could happen? 10 of my friends watch it and make fun of me?
Right.
That's not going to kill me.
Right. And I said that to Carson yesterday. I picked him up from camp, and he was like, I forgot how we talked about it, but he was talking about something he was nervous about. And I was like, hey, listen, at the end of the day, just you're going to be okay. Yeah. You're going to come home, you're going to eat dinner, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be doing your same thing. Like, your life isn't in danger. So have some confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. The thing is too, it's a lot easier for people to, with social media, to get fixed on videos that are just meaningless.
Yeah.
Like all this negativity, it's easier to be negative than it is to be positive. So like, and a huge important thing that a lot of people don't realize is how much you're influenced by what you listen to.
Right.
And like, and I think we might have touched on this before, but like if you're listening to all these videos, like these negative videos, and you're seeing just any type of thing that's negative, if that's all you watch all the time, like that's going to be the way you think,
right?
You know, whether you like it or not. Like you don't, it's the small things in life, like what you listen to and who you hang out with,
right?
Don't seem like it because it seems like it's a magic trick, like how it would change your life. Like you're your own person, but it has it's a bigger difference than you think. It's just psychology,
right? I think that's a perfect way to wrap up there. So, Tyler, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was really nice sitting and talking to you the past couple hours. I'll link all your stuff in the description box down below, and maybe we can have you on again sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. I'm going to be stepping into YouTube, so, you know, watch out for my music and my stuff. So it's going to be happening.
All Tyler's stuff will be linked down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you made it to this point in the video or the podcast, like, comment, subscribe, download as always, and I'll see you guys in the next one.